Hello, people. We have another exercise on critical reasoning. I hope by now you are clear on most of the concepts. You know the drill. This is the passage. You can pause the video here. Read the passage quickly. This is question number 1. This is question number 2, and this is question number 3. Okay. Ideally, the questions are a little tricky. Not too difficult, but I would be really proud of you if we can solve this whole thing in about 7 minutes. 8 minutes is cool. 9 minutes is pushing it. Okay, taking too much time. But again, it's called the infinite time test, right? So you don't want the timer pressure to check if you have knowledge or not. Then, like, let's say you take 20 minutes, but you get all the 3 correct. So the infinite time test is to tell you whether you got something wrong because of the pressure or because of your knowledge. If there's no time pressure, will you get all the questions right? If you didn't get the questions right, even when there's no time pressure, it means knowledge is lacking. Okay, critical reasoning is like that, which is why, again, in the exam you have to manage your time carefully. Avoid questions where time's not of essence. Like, no matter how much time you spend on that question, you are still not sure of what the answer would be. Please don't waste a lot of time on questions like that. And the mock should help you, whatever mocks you give and practice test you give should help you identify those kind of questions. Okay, everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. Let's look at the passage. Nothing exemplifies the promises and perils of self-actualized work better than the cultural conversations around do what you love. Okay, so promises is a positive word, perils is a negative word. So there are both pros and cons. Nothing exemplifies the pros and cons of self-actualized work more than the cultural conversation. So whatever the cultural conversation is, okay, we don't need to know what those are, but whatever they are, they tell you the pros and cons of self-actualized work. Now, what is the meaning of self-actualized work? It's explaining it. Okay, authors, they use funky words, but they'll almost always give you a clue or indication as to what those words would mean. Okay, because they want to show off their, all authors, everybody who writes, we want to show off that, hey, we know these words, but end of the day, I also want you to understand what I'm saying. So I'll give you some other indirect way of understanding those words. So don't get panicky if you see something funky and don't understand what it means, or look for the clues. The clues will always be there. Also remember, especially for RC passages, invariably, even if you don't know the meaning of a particular word, sometimes your knowledge of whether the word is positive or negative should be sufficient. Okay, anyways, here mentioned to you, do what you love. The injunction to or the command or the rule or whatever it is, a law, injunction to do what you love. It's a very easy way of remembering words, by the way. Sorry to digress. Is root words. Okay, junct. Where have you seen it? In conjunction, for example. Junction, juncture. Okay. So junct is a point. Similarly, injunction, enjoining. You connect some law. Okay. So always try to associate meanings of new words with some root word and some other familiar word that has the same root word, and you'll be able to remember the meanings better. The injunction to do what you love has had no shortage of critics. So these are critics of this do what you love funda. So these are critics of self-actualized work. Okay, that's the extra piece of information. What does this critics point? Critics say they point out its classist nature, advocate for a clearer delineation, separation between work and life, comma, and remind us that burnout might just be the flip side of self-actualized work. This comma is highly powerful. It's called the Oxford comma. The Oxford comma, you see it in A, comma, B, comma, and C. That's the Oxford comma, that after the B. The Oxford comma tells you that this is part of a series. A separate, B separate, C separate, then the Oxford comma. If the comma is not there, Oxford comma is not there, it's A, comma, B, and C, then there could be two possible meanings. Ambiguity, right? So it could mean that, A, B, C are separate, or it could mean that B and C are part of A. For example, I'm going to meet my parents, comma, Gandalf, comma, and Wonder Woman. I'm going to meet my parents, comma, Gandalf and Wonder Woman without the Oxford comma. Okay. In the second case, Gandalf and Wonder Woman will end up becoming being my parents. Okay. As much as that would be awesome, you don't want to explore those kind of possibilities. So you understand the comma can change the entire meaning. So I'm going to meet my parents, comma, Gandalf, comma, and Wonder Woman means I'm going to meet 4 people. Okay. If the Oxford comma is missing, we don't know if it's 4 people or 2 people. That's why the Oxford comma is very important. Make sure you observe this stuff, because a lot of times how you understand the passage depends on your understanding of words like of rules like these, or punctuation like this. Anyways, they point out that whole do what you love injunction has a classist nature. classist, as in classes, inequality, all those implications. They advocate this. Critics advocate for separation between work and life, and critics remind us that burnout might just be the flip side of self-actualized work. Flip side means on the other side of the story. Now, these are critics of self-actualized work, obviously, and burnout is a negative word, which means that the critics want to scare you away from self-actualized work, which means that we can understand the last line of this paragraph as, hey, burnout is a consequence. So you don't have to worry, hey, flip side means on the other side, opposite side. Does it mean that it's the opposite of self-actualized work? No, we don't have to worry about all that because the tone of the paragraph gives it away. Flip side of self-actualized work means the downside or the other side of the story or the other face of the coin or just a disadvantage. Okay, read it like that. Although the other meaning is possible for flip side, here we know the tone because here we know that this is the critics who are talking about it. The word critic gives it away. Not all agree that work should be a calling or that we should devote ourselves wholly to work. Calls for a shorter work week, for a better social safety net or more parental leave all demand that we as a society carve out a space of life, leisure and care against work. The assumption here of the critics is that work is different, space of life, leisure different. That's the assumption. Or work and leisure cannot happen together. Now you may ask, hey, why is that an assumption? Doesn't work mean the absence of leisure? Not necessarily, right? We don't know. Leisure is, yes, one of the meanings of leisure is not having work, being idle. But what if I'm a musician? What if I'm a writer? Okay, a writer is thinking or doing whatever his or her work is even during leisure, right? It's important for you to note this. That's why this assumption is important. So the assumption is actually not speaking about this extreme, whatever these professions are, musicians or, writers or whatever it is. It's not, it's talking about work. It's basically telling you that according to the critics, work and leisure don't go hand in hand. That's all you have to register. It's important for you to separate out and not assume things on your own. As a reader, you should be like a blank slate. Okay, you should not come with prejudices. Only when you don't come with prejudices, you will spot all these things. Okay. My argument is that, see, until here, the author never gave his or her argument. So okay, we are only talking about critics. Now the author is giving his or her argument. My argument is not that work shouldn't be meaningful or that pleasure cannot be found in work. This comma or is like comma and, which means that this is a separate idea. Is not this or this, not neither this nor this. You can read it like that. Okay, the semicolon is also very important. It's beautiful punctuation marks giving out so much information. So comma or tells you, hey, this is one idea, this is one idea. My argument is not A, my argument is not B. The bigger thing you have to remember here is this is how writers write, isn't it? It is not this or this, but it is this. You always watch out for this, but it is this. That it's always coming at the end. They always talk with negative. The negative information is not important information. It's not this or this. Okay, fine. Then what is it? It's the obvious question you should ask, isn't it? My point is that that's one piece of information I need you to remember. This is how you read. The second thing is I want you to focus on the semicolon. Why is a semicolon important? A semicolon can only be used when I can put a full stop there. Okay, end of the sentence. I can put a full stop. Why do I put a semicolon? Is the author telling you, hey, sentence complete grammatically, but idea is not complete. So the right side of semicolon is always important information. It's just giving you more information about the left side. Okay. My point is not this or this, semicolon. My point is that we should think carefully before accepting managerial ideas of fulfillment through work, because they risk detracting from the economic and social structures that govern work. We have to be careful because they detract us, which means according to the author, there are economic and social structures that govern work. It's important for us to remember this. That's what the author is telling us. It's important for us to remember this. Hey, I don't have a problem. You can enjoy your work. There can be meaning in work. There could be pleasure, but think a little bit. Okay. Don't let those managerial ideas of fulfillment through work too much into your head. So much so that you forget that there are economic and social structures. So there is economic and social structures that govern work, not meaning, not pleasure, not fulfillment through work, according to the author. Is that clear? You have to understand. So the author agrees with the critics. That's what we understand. So the author believes that space of life is different and work is different. The author is also part of the bandwagon. Okay. Work is work. This is the author's final argument, isn't it? That's the author's argument. Work is work. Work's work. Okay. Meaning and pleasure. And I'm not saying there's no meaning. The author is telling you, I'm not saying there's no meaning. I'm not saying that you cannot find pleasure. Yeah, probably you can, but don't let those managerial ideas forget that economic and social structures govern work. I want you to remember that. That's what the author is trying to tell you. So according to the author, economics and social structures determine your work and not meaning or pleasure or fulfillment through work. Okay. And then there is this work is work. This dash is elaboration. It's like a, you use it like a colon. Right side gives you more elaboration of the left side. What does work is work mean? No matter how many beer fridges or meditation seminars modern workplaces offer, no matter how many well-intentioned trainers show slides of pyramids. So why did the author give you this? Basically, beer fridges and meditation seminars, they are symbols of trying to make work look like fun, but they're not. Okay, work is work at the end of the day, and don't get carried away by beer fridges or meditation seminars. Okay, it sounds funky, but at the end of the day, work is work. That's what the author is trying to tell you. So the author is telling you the whole concept of loving your work and self-actualization of work and all of that is crap according to the author. Okay, look at the questions. These are the 3 questions, right? In case I've not shown them, don't remember if I've shown you all the 3 questions before. You can pause the video and solve them quickly. Anyways, question number 1: the argument mentioned in the 3rd para is weakened by which of the following? What is the argument? Work is work was the argument, right? It's weakened by which of the following? It's quite possible to find meaningful and pleasurable work. Doesn't weaken, because the author did not tell you that work does not have meaning or pleasure. He's saying, hey, that's not my point of view. The author told you. So yeah, you can find meaning and pleasure, and the author won't have trouble with it. The author's argument is something else. So this can be eliminated. The quality of work varies according to economic and social constructs. Won't weaken, because the author himself or herself is telling you that it's economic and social, what is the exact word? Economic and social structures, and if I want you to notice, okay, structures has been changed to construct, but still means the same thing, that govern work. So work will obviously vary according to these. This will definitely not weaken. Work can be managed to provide pleasure and to avoid burnout. Avoid burnout part is in the first paragraph, not even there in this particular paragraph where we are talking about this argument. That's what these quotes mean, by the way. It means that this word has been lifted from the passage given to you. Work can be managed to provide pleasure and to avoid burnout. The author never said that work won't give you pleasure, right? So work can be managed to provide pleasure won't weaken the author's argument. Work is not a function parallel to one space of life, but is a part of what defines our life. This will weaken the author's argument, okay? Therefore, D will be your answer. Why will this weaken? Because the author's assumption was that space of life is different, work is different. Work is work, the author emphasizes, right? So the moment you say work is life, which is what D is trying to tell you, it's not something parallel, it's something that defines your life, then it's going against what the author tried to tell you, isn't it? So D will be your answer. Which of the following doesn't weaken the statement that burnout might just be the flip side of self-actualized work? Now, from the tone, like I said, it's ambiguous. The statement is ambiguous because flip side means on the contrary, or the other side, the rare side, the opposite side, the other face of the coin, could mean all these things. But who made this statement? Critics of self-actualized work made this statement. Which of the following does not weaken? Which means out of the 4 options, 3 will weaken that statement. So 3 will be against the critics of self-actualized work. So 3 will be supporting self-actualization of work. That's how you solve the equation first. When you get a question like this, then you go to the options, you'll have more clarity. Okay, don't read the options if you did not even understand the question. That's something I would want you to do again and again. So always try to solve the question, the equation in the question first, like maths, isn't it? So I'm looking for 3 options which say, hey, self-actualized work is good. I'm looking for one that doesn't say that. Burnout can happen when one loses one's love for one's work, which means one's love for one's work is important to keep burnout out, probably. Okay, so weakens the critic's argument. Okay, so this is not our answer. Burnout is a function of exhaustion from work, irrespective of one's love for it. Whether you love it or not, it's a function of exhaustion from work. So is it weakening the critic's argument? No. Is it strengthening? No. It's saying, hey, if you're exhausted, burnout happens. It could be because you love your work. It could be because, I don't know, you just work hard. We don't know. So this one's not making a statement for or against the critics. Okay, easy to separate out. But let's say you did not catch it. That's also cool. Okay, every time you look at options, you have 2 chances, right? And therefore, when you get the answer wrong, you have to be a little careful. When you get the answer wrong, you make 2 mistakes. Mistake 1, you assume something existed in the wrong answer which did not exist, and you missed out something which existed in the right answer which you did not catch. So always spot both the mistakes. Okay, or you get 2 mistakes from every wrong answer that you get. You have to figure out where those 2 mistakes came from. It's important that you always have 2 chances. So sometimes that's why people who go by confirmation bias get more wrong answers. You just decided that B is the answer, or A, or whatever, A is the answer, and therefore you try to find evidence, but never care about why C can't be the answer, even though C is so close. You have to be able to explain to yourself, hey, A is my answer because of this reason, B is not the answer because of this reason, C is not the answer because of this reason, D is not the answer because of this. You have to be able to tell that to yourself before you pick an answer. If you don't do that, obviously you'll never get accuracy. Okay. Anyways. So burnout is a function of exhaustion from work irrespective of one's love for it. Dicey. Burnout can happen if one doesn't love one's work. Indirectly, it's telling you to keep burnout away, you love your work. So plus 2 self-actualization. So this one weakens the argument made by the critics. One's love for one's work makes exhaustion that leads to burnout impossible. It makes burnout impossible. Okay. Again, yes to the critics, isn't it? Sorry, yes to the self-actualization part. He's saying go for self-actualization. So this is a no to the critics, isn't it? So see, this is just an odd one out. You don't have to understand this statement. All I need to know is this one saying love your work, then you will be safe from burnout. This is saying love your work, then you'll be safe from burnout. This one saying love your work, you'll be safe from burnout. This one's not saying anything that way. It's just the odd one out. So doesn't weaken the statement, doesn't weaken the critic's stance, because it's saying burnout is a function of exhaustion. Again, another way of spotting it is B can also happen when the critics are right, isn't it? Burnout is a function of exhaustion from work. You like something, you work too much because you like it, and then burnout happens. So the critics end up being right? Burnout and self-actualized work is happening together. So half of the situation, it supports the critics, other half it doesn't, because it has got nothing to do with the relationship mentioned in the paragraph. So burnout is a function of exhaustion from work irrespective of one's love for it. Or not, or whatever it is, doesn't weaken the state. This is just the odd one out rather of these 3 options. It's tricky. Even if you did not catch it, you should be able to catch it from the other 3 options. Okay. Just take another brief moment to discuss a little bit more about B. Okay. But the other thing that you need to spot is when it says burnout is a function of exhaustion from work irrespective of one's love for it, can I also interpret it as burnout and one's love for work or actualization of work, no connection? So can I say B weakens the argument because the statement is saying burnout and actualized work are connected? Can I say that? It's a very good question to ask. It's a question that I'll be happy if it occurred to you. It's a kind of question that should occur to you. Can I go that way? Yes. Then why is B still the answer? Why is B not weakening it? Because the tone of the paragraph already told you what the meaning of the statement is, right? Remember, we discussed it when I was discussing the sentence. The tone of the paragraph is already telling you that it's the critics who are making this statement. If the critics of self-actualized work are making this statement and they're using a negative word burnout, they will associate the word burnout with self-actualized work. That's what they will. So you don't have to worry about the ambiguity of the word flip side. The critics would want to scare you, right? So if the critics want to scare you, then they'll say, hey, burnout happens if you are all about self-actualized. So burnout is a disadvantage of self-actualized work, it says. Okay. B is not telling the critics are wrong in any way. Go by it in that way. Okay. It's not about whether, so the whole idea of burnout is connected to self-actualized work here, burnout is not connected, that we don't need to take that line, because from the tone we understand that the author is threatening people who the critics are threatening people who believe in self-actualized work. They're threatening them with the concept of burnout. Okay, threatening them. And this sentence again can continue the threat, isn't it? If you love your work too much, you do work too much work, you will obviously have a burnout. So that logic that, B is saying there is no connection, but the sentence is saying there is a connection, therefore B weakens, that logic is not right. Okay, it's a very good question to ask, should occur to you. Okay, anyway, so the answer to this particular question is option B. Which of the following is an inference from the passage? Okay, what's an inference from the passage? Something that you can deduce from the passage. The author did not give it to you word by word, but the author meant it. That's what is inference. The question can also say, which of the following can you conclude from the passage? Which of the following has been implied by the author? Which of the following statements will be approved by the author? Or which of the following statements agree with the content of the passage? Which of the following statements is implicit in whatever the passage is trying to say? All these are different ways of asking the same questions. It's saying, what did you understand? That is true from the passage. It's not given word to word in the passage. The author did not give you directly, but gave it to you. How is it different from the assumption? Assumption is critical to the author's argument. Inference is extra information from the author's argument. The author made an argument, inference comes extra over. It's like 4 + 1. Okay, 4 statements is the argument. And then the +1 is what comes after the argument. You know that also based on what you learned in the argument. Assumption is inside the argument. The assumption is important for the author to make his or her final statement. Okay. And the assumption here is the author's assumption, mind you. It's not your assumption. Why is it an assumption? Because the author assumes that the author talks about A in one sentence, B in another sentence, and the author assumes that A and B are connected. Okay. It's like saying read 15,000 words a day, you'll get 99 percentile. What is the assumption? One statement is talking about 15,000 words a day. One statement is talking about 99 percentile. So the assumption is that the reading word count and the percentile are connected. That's the assumption, isn't it? The author assumes that that there is a connection. Why did the author not mention it directly? Why did the author assume that you know it? Because authors write for the target audience. They don't write for CAT test takers or GMAT test takers, right? They're writing for their target audience. So they assume that the target audience already knows the connection. As a reader, you have to be able to spot stuff like that. So which of the following is an inference from the passage? Cultural conversations around do what you love, ignore the perils of self-actualized work. We can't infer this, isn't it? We don't know, because cultural conversations exemplify the promises and perils. That much we know. Cultural conversations ignore the perils of self-actualized work is unfair to say, right? Because the author clearly told us. What did he tell us? Nothing exemplifies the promises and perils better than the cultural conversations, which means cultural conversations exemplify both the promises and perils. They exemplify both. So I cannot say they ignore. So this ignore is enough for me to eliminate this option. The delineation between work and life can help in avoiding burnout. If you remember A, comma, this is where the Oxford comma is important again. A, comma, B, comma, and C, isn't it? Three things. Who point out its classist nature, advocate for a clearer delineation between work and life, comma, and remind us that burnout might just be the flip side. So A, comma, B, comma, and C. So burnout, different concept. Delineation between work and life, different concept. So they're asking for all these three. Doesn't mean one has an influence over the other. B is not influencing C, isn't it? What is this option saying? Delineation between work and life can help in avoiding burnout. There's no connection between these two. This is separate. Burnout is a separate concept. Delineation is a separate concept spoken about by the critics. So easy to eliminate. Which of the following is an inference? We are looking for the inference, right? Meaningful work need not always coincide with fulfillment through work. Need not always coincide. True. This I can infer. How can I infer this? My argument is not that work shouldn't be meaningful, which means work can be meaningful. My argument is not that work shouldn't be meaningful. Work should be meaningful, probably. My argument is that be a little careful when you're accepting managerial ideas of fulfillment through work. Be a little careful. Why? Because this itself is a dicey concept. So the author is saying, I'm not saying work is not meaningful. I'm saying be careful when people put that whole fulfillment through work into your head, which means that not all work will give you fulfillment through work. Not all work is meaningful, which means the A is a different set, B is a different set. There could be overlap, there may not be overlap. But what is this option telling me? Meaningful work need not always coincide. Yeah, I can infer that. Need not always coincide. Meaningful work will coincide with fulfillment through work, cannot be inferred. Meaningful work need not always coincide with fulfillment through work, can be inferred. Okay. Meaningful work never coincides with fulfillment through work, again cannot be inferred. Okay. That's why extreme options are very easy to figure out. So watch out for those kind of extreme options. So meaningful work need not always coincide with fulfillment through work. True. Those who agree that work should be a calling do not demand for a shorter work week. Again, affirmation of consequent fallacy, right? We discussed this in one of the earlier videos as well. What is it saying? Calls for a shorter work week, for a better social safety net, or more parental leave. All demands. Who's making this? Not all agree that work should be a calling. Okay, well, calling here is an idiomatic word. Okay, what does it mean? Calling means the purpose of your life. What you think is the purpose of your life is your calling. So not all agree that work should be a calling, which means some people believe that hey, work need not be the purpose of your life. These are the guys who call for a shorter work week. It's elaboration further, right? Now, what is this option saying? Those who agree that work should be a calling, the reverse, do not demand for a shorter work week. How would we know? The statement is saying those who do not believe that work should be your calling, those guys are demanding for a shorter work week. From this statement, we don't know what people who agree that work should be a calling are demanding. So we cannot say, oh, people who agree that work should be a calling do not demand for shorter work. I don't know, because I am talking only about the other set. I'm talking about the set that says, I don't believe that work should be a calling. I want a shorter work week. This is one set. I believe that work will be your calling. What is this guy demanding? I don't know. How can I make a guess? I can't, isn't it? Because these guys could have other n number of other things. So be a little careful. When P leads to Q, do not directly randomly assume that, okay, Q happened, so P has to happen. Q could have happened because of other reasons. It's as simple as that. Okay, makes sense. So those who agree that work should be a calling do not demand for a short break, I can't infer. So the answer to this particular question is option C. That brings us to the end of this video. Hope it made sense to you. If you benefit from the video, please share, subscribe. I mean, do or don't, it's up to you.